on real estate.
That's funny. That's funny.
I like that meme. It says real estate's not stressful at all. And then it's like a lady, it's like 90 years old. And she's like, Jill, 28 years old, whatever her name is.
That's exactly right. That's all right. That's why you get paid so well, right? I think there's a lot of negative connotation around whatever it is you charge in your business, and it's easy to do that math, but the workload that goes into that and the investment and the risk that you take in your business that goes into that. Picking up your phone in the evening, the weekends, that's the thing. Going the extra mile, that's probably something we got to talk a little bit about today. I love that. I love that rule of going the extra mile because what do they say? Go the extra mile, nobody's there. And it's easy to go the extra mile. It makes you look really good, not to be able to beat your chest, but to make it work. Like I may or I may not have a broom and a squeegee in the back of my pickup truck right now that I will be going and cleaning up some water that got into a basement in a house. Why? Because that's the job that needs to get done right now. And I got a seller that's in a tough spot. So that's what it is. So again, I know we all do those things and we talk and we preach a lot about like, you need to leverage that thing. You need to do like, you need to be able to get someone else to do that. And most generally that does happen. But when it comes down to it and there's not another option, that you are the option at that point. But it's amazing the amount of trust you do get with people when you do go the extra mile, no matter what it is. It could be something very small, but it's huge to them. So just thinking about that. Um, I think, I don't know, I don't want to bag on guys too much, but I think women are really good at thinking of others first. Like moms, you moms are always thinking of others first, but figuring out what that extra thing or what that thing is going to be needed ahead of time. I'm kind of on the surface a little bit at times, so I'm working at getting better at it. But just figuring out what it is that person's going to need before they can think of it and making that happen. It's very rewarding. Somebody told me this was going to be a light class today, but you know what? I don't believe that. Phone's still ringing. I guess there
Hey,
was a
Hey, Marcia. How'd you get that $5 million listing?
That took a lot of work.
Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did put a lot of work into that and I put on a good presentation and I actually there was 2 other agents they interviewed, including Haley Epps and Pam Hatcher. And so I went out from both of them. So I was quite happy about that. But I put a lot of work into it. I put a little presentation together. I had them come in the office. I rearranged the conference room. I set it up and I got it. Now I just have to sell it. No big deal. I'm on it though. I'm doing it. I am selling that piece of property. So yeah, thank you, Joanna.
It's seriously like $5 million. Is it your listing?
It is. It's $5.5 million. It's right here in Raymore. It's 160 acres, perfect for commercial development, subdivision, retail.
Wow.
I've been in touch with the city and they're on board with whatever they want to do. They're happy to see something coming about with that property. So
that's awesome. I think Ryan wants to buy that.
Great. I've been waiting on him to bring an offer.
He's gonna buy dirt.
I do.
Sorry. You bringing it? Oh, Brider. There you go. Call me, Ryan.
I'll see what we can do. Hey, I do want to, on that topic though, Marcia, I definitely want to commend you. The marketing piece that you put out on that is phenomenal. Can you share that to our private page as well? I want our agents to be able to see
the video
that.
or the who did it.
The video, not who did it.
Yep.
You did it. If they're interested more, then they can inquire with you. But I just wanted you to showcase a little bit to our agents some of the work that you put in and what that looks like. That video is just top notch on attracting a potential buyer for that, because it answers a lot of questions. It gives a lot of detail and features, not just a picture of a tree in a field,
Yes. And that was actually one of my marketing plans to get the listing originally, as I showed them samples of that work that I was going to have done, exactly how I was going to market their property, went above and beyond what other agents do in the land. It's just a picture of land and maybe an aerial shot. And that's what got me the listing. And it cost some money to put that video together, but well worth it. So
what was that again?
I will share that with everybody. I'm happy to share any of the information.
So who
That's
did
what we
you
do.
use to do your video?
I had a local drone guy do the actual drone footage. And then I sent all of that off to an online company called Aerial Solutions. And they did all the homework and the graphics, the special graphics, and laid it all out. And then I had a couple edits done, and then they sent it right back to me. So within a week, I had it all put together.
Wow.
And you can modify it. And that's one of the reasons I didn't. I probably should have put the price on the video, but then I learned you can go back and modify your video for X amount of dollars if you need to as you go along. And there are some things I probably will change about here. That's today's project. So
So that was called Aerial Solutions.
yes, yeah, you can find them online. They do some pretty amazing stuff.
There you go,
So
right there. That is
Mhm.
going the extra mile right there to win the listing, doing
Thanks.
what others aren't doing. So excellent job on that piece. That was
Thank you.
You make me want to get better. When I watch that, I'm like, I suck. I got to get better. Marcia's kicking me down.
No, actually, I pulled up your listing over in Belton. I think you have 10 acres commercial. And you had a pretty neat piece on it too, like, you know, how you have all the businesses designated out and all the things going around it. My listing doesn't have a whole lot of things going around it yet, but it is kind of the next piece of Raymore's development. So we are right in line for the next steps of Raymore. So
Absolutely.
I looked at all everybody's that had land. I was like, what can I do? What are people doing? And so yeah, good job, Ryan.
No, I felt like I was JB when I watched your video. I was like, oh, smokes, I gotta put up my listings here. So, but again, I appreciate that because again, I don't look at it as competition. I look at it as what do I need to be doing in my business to be able to help my clients at a higher level. And so like, okay, this is what we need to look at, and these are some of the things that we need to be doing. So that's awesome, because here's the thing. You can go out there and you can send that video out and you can tell everybody here, and you can tell the whole real estate community who did the video and how it was done and all that. But how many of those people are actually going to do it?
Yeah.
Maybe 3%
Yes.
never do it. Yeah, very rarely would anybody do it. And that's the difference. That's the difference. So I think it's just the commitment level of being able to be committed to excellence in your business. So, but you definitely did it
Thank
on
you.
that. Congratulations. Lonnie mentioned that. I know you weren't at the meeting, but he thinks that may be the largest listing that this office has ever taken at one time.
That's
so
awesome.
that's really,
Thanks, Wrestling.
really great
Thank you,
stat right
guys.
there. So
Thank you. I
can't
appreciate that. It's a little pressure. I mean, I am pleased to have it. It's a lot of pressure to get it sold. But I did sign up on some commercial websites, and I'm paying monthly for those, so it's reaching out to people. And one of the salespeople at LoopNet that I'm on, he's been a really good help in showing me how to market to commercial properties, how to reach the property managers of big companies throughout the country. So I'm learning a lot through that process for sure. But yeah, it's been fun. I kind of had to lay off of it for the last 2 weeks to get everybody else under contract and do all the other things I'm doing. And so today it's my new focus is to start a fire under that again. So you'll be seeing more videos and I'm just spreading it about, just getting it, whatever it takes to get it sold. So it's been fun. I've been quite honored to have that piece of property. I actually had it back in 2015 and 2017, but it was listed at like 2.7 million. And they weren't really motivated to sell it. Yeah, they weren't really motivated, and now they're ready to sell it. So
I bet
I was happy. And it wasn't just to give me. I worked my tail off getting that. It was a lot of work, but I learned a lot of things in the process.
That's good. That's good. The amount of preparation that went in, and I want to pause on this point for just a second. On the presentation, you didn't take that lightly. You didn't just walk into a room and try to dazzle them with brilliance and baffle them with bullshit. You actually set up an actual appointment, and you made sure you were organized so that you could show them your value proposition. And I think I would express to everybody on here,
that was
to
good.
work on your value proposition, because when you do that and you deliver a great message when you're being interviewed, they don't traditionally they don't talk a whole lot about what you're going to charge. You can get to the end and ask for the order for them to hire you, and without even disclosing that. I always do, but I wait. I ask for the business first, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to hire you. And I'm like, I didn't even tell you what I'm going to charge yet. And of course I've got that information with me and I show them at that point. But I do that because that's reassurance that the value proposition was delivered at that point. They clearly understand the process. they're confident in the ability for us to help them at the highest level, and they want to work with us. So work on that piece, that value proposition, and win more listings. Has anybody been beat out of listings lately or having a tough time on a listing, Joanna?
Well, so, Marcia, that really was, spoke to me because, okay, I went on a listing. Now she wanted, it was in Loch Lloyd and it was like a $1.2 million property, 1.5, whatever. And, this was on Saturday. She said she wanted to meet on Monday. So I didn't have a lot of preparation and I didn't know what I'm doing because I've never sold in Loch Lloyd, and there's acreage there, 6 acres. And I'm like, how do you figure that? Anyway, I feel like I went in just like a normal regular listing, not very prepared. Normally I'm prepared with what I'm doing, but I wasn't as prepared for that type of listing. And of course I knew ahead of time that the wife told me that the husband already had somebody that he was looking at, which was his really good friend in real estate. So I guess I was like nonchalant about it. And I should have, put the effort in and do a really great presentation and just try, because I think I was defeated before I went in. And yeah, definitely I didn't do that. And so I'm thinking even about my listing in 151st and Mission Road. I haven't done much on that. And it's, a $600,000 piece of land, and I haven't been able to sell it, but I haven't done much. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to look you up and I'm going to find out how to do some of that stuff. Cause yeah, I need to up my game for sure.
Well,
It was good.
anything I can help with. I don't have all the answers, but I've learned a lot in this process for sure. And anything
Yeah.
I can help with, I'm happy to share with anybody what I did, what I'm doing. I felt the same way about this listing. I knew I was up against other agents. And so it happened to be, I was prepping through like the last 3 cold weeks of winter. And
Wow.
I just sat in my house and I just put my nose to my laptop and just got it done and came up with things. It was very frustrating, very time consuming. It was long days. But I wanted to be prepared because I knew I was coming up against bigger agents. And so, yeah.
Wow.
And I could see what about
Good
doing
job.
that. And I did a PowerPoint presentation, all these things. I had never done one before. I didn't even know if it'd be handy, but it worked out. So yeah. So
Wow.
I do feel a little more confident about putting on a presentation, and I see the value of that because one of those agents just met them at a Starbucks and didn't even offer them coffee for a $5 million listing. And so I'll cater to that. I'll bring coffee and creamer and sugar
Like $8 a coffee.
And dinner.
It's expensive.
and dinner
Wow.
and a foot rub, whatever you want. Oh, that's too far. But
Whatever you do, it's your business. But
thanks, whatever works. Huh?
But again, setting it up, not meeting at a casual place. It's a pretty detailed business discussion that you were having with this person, a private conversation, right? Thank you.
Yes.
So that's one of the things. Do we really want to have it in the middle of a Starbucks? Not that that's not a great place to meet for other types of meeting, but you're talking about a very important thing that's getting ready to happen with this property. So, and the distractions that are going on around you, you were able to control the environment because you brought them in to our arena, into our office, and you set it up the way you needed to. So again, you set the stage the way it needed to be done so that you could find success. And again, great job.
So
on that.
I have a question about
Thank you.
that.
Mhm.
I have a question. I don't know who I would ask, but so lots of times people invite you to their homes,
Mhm.
to do, they want you to sell their house. And so they invite you to come to their house because they want you to see the house. And so, you end up doing the listing presentation at their house.
Mhm.
Do you feel like that's as effective as making them come to the office if you haven't seen their house? What do you guys think?
For me, no. I always want to see the house. I want in the house. You can tell me how great your house is, but nobody gets in more houses than you guys do. All right. So you're able to understand what the market is at a high level. And if you'd be doing them a disservice not to go to their home. Now, this land piece was a little bit different on Marcia's side because it is dirt and she may need to go out there and walk it. But she knew the land already. She's
Yeah.
been out there, her feet have been out there, so she knows it. But for us going to a listing appointment, I very rarely would take a listing at the office. I just
Yeah.
would not do it. I want to be at their
Yeah.
kitchen table, sitting down with them, and asking some pretty direct questions so I can understand them better. And then also have toured the house. I like to try to tour the house by myself because I don't really want them in my ear. I want to be able to focus on some things when I'm walking through, looking for specific things. so I can
Okay.
ask them some more questions about it. But yeah, to answer your question, Joanna, always get to the kitchen table for listings.
Mhm.
On buyers, bring them in here and do a consultation in our conference room. If your seller is going to become a buyer, let them know it will be 2 appointments in one when you meet with them. We'll be going through the buy side as well and signing documents for an agreement on that side at the same time. So let them know there's 2 appointments at one time, basically, if they're going to be a buyer. So you can do that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Cool. That was an awesome piece that, it kind of went a direction I didn't really expect it to, but that was great just from successes. So, I think we may find some more interviewing going on, and it's great to find out. Would you like to know if they were interviewing more than one agent before you got to the house?
Mhm.
That'd be great.
Mhm.
A great question to
Yes.
ask them on the phone, or to send them a questionnaire. Jake, do you send out a questionnaire? What do you do?
Every time. Got to send out
Every
the question.
time?
Yep, every time.
All right.
And unless I will not lose an appointment if they refuse to do it. I won't lose the customer. But 9.99.9% of the time, I get that questionnaire back. And if I don't get it back, I say, hey, do we need to reschedule? It's hard for me to pull some of my comps and pull the data I need without that information. Do you have 5 minutes? Could you get that done for me this morning before our appointment at 2? And usually they do. And
Why?
go ahead.
Why is that? Why is that so important for you to send that questionnaire? What are you getting before you get to the house? What information are you obtaining to be able to help them at a higher level?
Selfishly, it's great. I mean, it gives me everything. It gives me all the updates they've done to the house. In there, it says, what do you like most about your house? And they'll kind of give a description. So that's great for creating like listing remarks and things like that. I also have a ranking system on, and I copied it from you, a lot of the stuff. I make them rank it 1 to 10. And if they think their house is a 7 out of 10, and I think their house is worth 250, and the 10 out of 10s in their house in their neighborhood are going for 250, then that's a very easy conversation to have. And on that listing question, I also ask them what the value of their house they think is, how much they owe on their house, are they interviewing other agents, are they considering for sale by owner, what are things that they're looking for in me. That's a good one, because if people are like, I want somebody to really kind of hold my hand and teach me this stuff, then it kind of helps me shape how I present myself to them. It gives me everything I need.
Mhm. I
And
like the
you
question of
can,
how soon do you want to be on the market?
Mm-hmm.
That gets you right inside their mind of how soon they think they're putting a sign in their yard. And sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's this year. That's a powerful question to ask, because that allows you to understand the level of intensity you're going to need to operate when you start working for them. How quickly do we need to move? And we can move fast. When we need to move fast, we absolutely can. But man, I love the ones that want to meet, and we've got 2 months of lead up time. We've got a month and a half to prep the house and get it polished, and then boom, we'll pre-MLS it for a couple weeks, and then we'll have this great launch of a listing. The ones that come in, Joanna, I wanted my house on the market in 3 days or whatever it is. That's a tough one right there, unless they've already done all of the preparation and staging, and they have a background in it or an eye for it, and they've already done it. And those happen about once every probably 30 listings for us. Very rarely will someone have everything done, dialed in. I go meet with them and they're ready to put the house on the market, in 5 days. And I like to tell our clients that we need the bulk of a week to get the house ready, marketing wise, as far as our photography, all of our writing up, our language, everything that we're doing there, so that it can launch properly and we can get the biggest bang for our buck when we go to the market. So again,
yeah.
getting that information, asking those questions before you get in that door, that puts you about 45 minutes ahead of any other agent out there that is not asking those questions. And your level of conversation will go much deeper with them to be able to understand them at a better level. You'll have a better appointment and you'll probably win more listings. You should win more listings by doing that. So think about that.
Yeah, 100%. My listing close ratio has been much higher since I've been doing that, and I just feel more prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone into listings. Has anybody gone into a listing unprepared? We all have. I know we have. It happens. And then you're not sure, you know, where you're fact finding very quickly, and you're trying to build rapport at the same time, and it's difficult because you're trying to have a business conversation wrapped into learning more about them if you're not already acquaintances or friends with them. Even if you are friends with them, I've had some terrible appointments with friends. I don't know if you guys have ever done that before. You know, oh, I know this person, it'd be great, and maybe I didn't prepare as much as I should, and the appointment doesn't go as good as it should. And that's always our fault for not preparing properly. So going in and just saying, hey, you know what, Jake, we're going to have a business conversation today. I know we're friends, we've been friends for a long time, but now you're going to talk to real estate Ryan, and we're going to have a business conversation, and that's it. And that way you can get into it, and you don't get lost on all these crazy tangents and get off topic. You can get through your material and complete the appointment, usually, hopefully within an hour for a listing. And I like to do about an hour and 20 minutes for a listing and buy consultation.
Got to trademark that, the real estate Ryan.
I think my daughter's trying to do that. That's a joke, by the way, guys. I don't think that much of myself. It's just a goofy name. So I don't know. I hope you know that already.
That's perfect. Yeah.
So
I always thought I should put, so with Marsha on my signs. I'm sure it's trademarked big time, but I always thought at least only people of our generation would know. Some of them don't even know what that means anymore, but
you
but
should
sketchy.
call Marsha.
Marsha. Yep.
Okay, what does that mean?
Oh, it's from the Brady Bunch.
Oh.
Back in the 70s, and that's how I got named. I had a my sisters were teenagers when I was born in the 70s. So they blessed me with the name Marsha from the Brady Bunch. And in the Brady Bunch, the other sisters were a little bit jealous of Marsha. So it's always Marsha. So that's where that came from.
Awesome. All right. So obviously today I jumped on here for Sandy, but I had one other thing I was working on. I just kind of started this new book. Has anybody read 10X is Easier Than 2X? It's by Dan Sullivan. I was on a phone call last week, a Zoom call, with fortunately enough with Mark King, and that was one of his books that he was reading or had read and recommended at a high level. And so I just started listening to it, and within that book, the introduction, it talks about the story of Michelangelo in the late 1400s, and his rise to success was very, very interesting. And as a young adolescent, he was trying to understand the body and how it worked and how it functioned, and so he wanted to dissect cadavers, and so he could sculpt these things eventually, but he had to really dig deep to understand that. And so that's what he looked at cadavers and took all the little pieces and everything for our body, our anatomy, to understand that. And it was actually illegal at the time to do that. And so he was on the outer edge of the law, if you will, on trying to understand something at super high level. Well, anyway, he was able to do that. And at the young age, I think it was like 19 years old, he did one of his first sculptings. It was just absolutely amazing. But he didn't just sculpt anything out of marble right away. He utilized a clay form at the same time, and he would also draw prior to that. So it wasn't just jumping all the way into the deep end. There was like a period of internship, if you will, because he certainly didn't get paid well when he started. But it was a work up to that. It was a bunch of different steps, but he was willing to take that so he could understand at the highest level. And ultimately, in his career, just some of the most amazing thing, the Pope was calling on him to do work for him, and it just being able to name his price on anything. And of course, obviously, one of the greatest artists in history. So that it was interesting to me that okay, that's the progression through any type of success or career. But it's the agony piece that you have to go through to get there. and it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's arduous. It takes too long. It's boring. All these are all the thoughts I have. Does anybody have any of those thoughts as well as they work through their business and growing and these pains and all that? Just me. Um, and so it's like, okay, are we willing to do that? And Gary talks about giving into the boredom of mastery, because it is boring to do the same thing over and over again, to where you just, it's second nature to you. You don't have to think about it so much. It's just, you understand at the highest level. It's elementary at that point. And I think that goes back to some of the key things that we do in this business. If we were to master some of those skills, it would make everything very easy in our world. One of the things we just talked about with listing appointments, fantastic. Nail those. Conversations on the phone. Can you nail a conversation on the phone? Can you master the first 5 seconds of a conversation on the phone? If you can do things like that, again, things start to get easier for you. And if you guys have ever played a sport, if you ever started in a sport, if you remember, if you think back when you were a kid and you were playing, let's say maybe baseball or football, when you first got on the field, things might have moved very quickly for you all of a sudden because you were trying to understand how the game was played, and you didn't have a good concept of it. But if you stuck with any sport throughout, middle school and high school and maybe even college, for some of you guys, I know Nate played some baseball. He was a stud athlete. The game starts to slow down, and if the game doesn't really slow down, you are that much better at that point, and you have so much more time to process and think. And then you're playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers out there on the field, and things really start to happen for you and success happens for you. So again, just being able to be okay with the process and just committing to excellence. So that's the thing I really press on for myself personally, to try to get better at something at such a level that then my competition is not even my competition out there anymore. And so that book, I 100% recommend that one. I'm about an hour into that 8-hour read, and it's phenomenal already. So I would ask you guys, are we reading? Are we listening? And I love suggestions on what it is you're working on, because I think we can all get better together.
I really liked your negotiation books that you recommended. What was that? Never Split the Difference?
Oh yeah, the Chris Voss book.
Yeah, with the hostage negotiator.
Mhm.
That was a
Yeah.
fantastic book.
He was negotiating on lives.
Yeah.
And so makes our job seem really simple, then doesn't, it's not that bad. So he's trying to negotiate for people's lives. And unfortunately, in a career as successful as his, it didn't always turn out great. There was some misfortunes in there as well. But if you guys haven't read that one, that's a phenomenal read. It's a great insight into the psychology of the mind, to understand people and try to win the negotiation.
Jake, what was one of your favorite takeaways from that book?
I think the one, there's a bunch of them. The first one that comes to head, top of the mind, it was the counter back with a specific number. So it sounds like you were very thought of, or that's all that we have.
Mhm.
Instead of just coming back at 202 or 200, come in at 202, 125 or something like that. Like, hey, this is everything that we have.
We put thought into it. I like that. Mine was don't go for yeses, search for nos.
Mhm.
Like, you want to get the no's, and because that when you get people saying no, you know what your boundaries are. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, that was a great. I've got a whole bunch of notes on that book. I think I've read it twice. I need to read it like 3 more times. There's so much stuff in that book.
There's a ton of levels in that for sure. I've listened to it twice now, and I probably understand it at about a 25% level. It just, there's a lot there to digest. Nate, one of the things that you just talked about, the no piece of it, when you were making your phone calls, hey, did I catch you at a bad time? No. They just let you in right there. That's mastering the first 5 seconds of the conversation right there. Boom. And then we can talk. They already picked up the phone. You ever have someone pick up the phone and it just feels like they're just trying to get off the phone with you? That's because you didn't ask them if you caught them at a bad time. Because if you did, they'd say, yeah, they would. And so I work on that. I catch myself asking it the wrong way. Hey, is now a good time for you? Instead of the way Nate does it and the way Chris Voss does it. So think about that, you know, and there's another great one that's go for no. That's on that the same idea. But again, that's a great read there. Good recommendation.
Yeah, it says no on my notes here. It says no is the start of the negotiation.
Mhm.
So that was cool. Yeah, and then there was try to get to know if you've got those buyers that you can't get a hold of. You say, "Oh, you guys, or have we just given up on buying a house?" Well, no, we've just been busy. Okay, well, I've messaged you 7 times. You haven't replied back to me until I just asked that question. Things like that. So yeah, that was a good one. Um, oh, the 4 seconds of silence. I have a really hard time with that one.
For sure. That's hard.
That's a great one to practice. Do you guys, and I think as salespeople, we like to fill the space, the airspace with a lot of conversation because we think there's a lot of value in a lot of words. But that's not the case. We can say a lot less words and get our point across. We can ask better questions, ask great questions to get better answers, and ask certain questions and let them talk. All right, that's huge to be able to let them speak and let them process and articulate their side of things so that you can understand instead of you trying to tell them what's going to happen. And then Trisha asked anybody, if you're not looking at the chat box over here, what book did Lonnie recommend on Tuesday? You remember that?
It was yellow. He held it up and it was yellow and it was an investment book. I think he said that.
Wasn't it Hold? Wasn't it just called Hold?
Maybe.
It was. Great job, Joanna. It was Gary
Thank
Keller's
you.
book Hold. So he's got
Yeah.
Flip and he's got Hold. I think he's got Flip. No, it's got the MREI. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
Hey, not to go back to never split the difference, but one of my big takeaways from that one, which was really helpful early on in my real estate career too, was even Chris Voss, as skilled as a negotiator as he was, and taking that and translating it into the corporate world, which he does in the book, they focus so much on scripting and role play. Like they go through, hey, this is they want to know all possible scenarios that could come up in their negotiation, right? So they did a lot of role playing, so that they didn't have to think in the moment of what their response would be. They already had dialogued through what their response would be. So it was like, well, if it's scenario A, here's our response. If it's scenario B, here's our response. If it's scenario C, and I found myself more so lately than ever before having that conversation with my clients. Well, if they respond with this, what direction do we want to go? If they respond with that, what direction do we want to go? So then it's like we already have our planned or our staged outcomes before we even get into a negotiation, whether it's during the inspection period or I'm in the middle of an appraisal one right now. And I can appreciate, as skilled as Chris was, that was still one of the main things that he worked on with his corporate clients was we're going to do a script and dialogue. We're going to role play it before we get into it. That's really valuable.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah, knowing what to say. That's it. It's one of the 5 things.
Yeah, I think another thing on there is slowing it down. I get a little nervous and I start talking faster and go quicker. So I always have to remember to slow it down on everything in negotiations and talking and presentations, everything. And what helps a lot with that is practicing and doing my scripts and having it down like it's my own words, not like I'm reading it off of a script that somebody printed out for me.
Hey, if you need to read the script, just take it with you. Gene Rivers says that. He goes, you should just take this with you if you don't know it and just read it to them. More than likely, you'll probably get hired because you're actually saying something important and correct. Just read it and see what happens. But all kidding aside, you should you should already know that language before you get there and be able to explain that. So, but that's funny. Yeah. But
My second grader reads better than I do. I just have to hand him the paper. Just say, here, just read this.
yeah, this will tell you everything you need.
I'm like the little kid in Billy Madison. Today, Junior.
That's all right. If you practice enough, it will become second nature. I can promise you that. So that is the most boring thing. Who loves to do scripts? Nobody does here. Alex does. Alex loves scripts. I know he does. That's the thing. I practiced them in the training room and when I was a productivity coach, and everybody showed up to that class. And that's all right, it's okay. But because it is boring. Yeah, I sounded stupid. I probably still sound stupid. That's all right. But I just kept practicing it until the words made sense. And I took the scripts from Bold and Ignite. So all those classes that we've had before, and I just kind of kept using Diana's words and things just start happening. So I can assure you, if you struggle in listing appointments, or you're not sure what to say, or you don't think you sound right, then call on me, call on Alex. He'll script practice with you. I can promise you that. And you can hone those skills. All right. What else do we got going on today? Any burning questions out there?
I feel like I've been talking a lot on this mastermind, but price cuts and things like that. I think we've talked about it before. What's an effective price cut? When to do it? How do we know when to do it? Like, who's had like? Because I don't know. Does it make a difference going from 400 to 397? Does it just populate back up at the top of people's search, or what are your opinions on that?
Nate, you want to jump on that one?
So yeah, any price adjustment does get you on the hot sheets, which is a big deal. I believe so. Yeah, but I'm a firm believer in threshold pricing, and if we have showings, we've noticed a significant decline in showings, or we're not getting any showings at all, we got to do a price adjustment, because everything will sell. It's just when price and condition meet. So we look at stats to come up with what we think the list price will be, but if the market's rejecting us for whatever reason, it's either price or condition. So those are what we're working toward, is to find the market for that property.
So I have a question about, so you meet with a seller and the house really needs work. It needs new carpet, it needs paint, and they don't really have the money to do that. But but they want this price, but yet the house is not going to get that because it looks bad. So how do you do you try to convince them that or do you just say, because the condition, we're going to go lower, or what do you do on that?
Well, there's many different scenarios, but we got to touch on the motivation for selling. It all starts with that. Why are you wanting to sell, first of all, right? And then if they say we have to move, we're going to Denver for a job or whatever, we got to move. All right, well then we're gonna need to do some things where we can get some carpet samples and a bid from Carpet for Less to say, hey, this you can pick from this carpet, or you can upgrade it, but this is what we're giving for a carpet allowance. That's kind of the least expensive, least invasive way to address a bad carpet problem. You could probably do a very similar version with a painter, get a bid for it and say, hey, we'll get this done for you, or provide the funds for this amount, and you can attack those problems. That is not what you're doing when you do that is you're quantifying the cost. Like a buyer might come through and be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a $20,000 carpet and paint job, and you're showing them bids that it's only $8,000, right? And you're just removing that problem. But as you know, I like getting the work done, because that work is, the buyers are going to have the warm, fuzzy, emotional feelings of, hey, this could be my home, versus trying to envision what it might look like and smell like without that car, But
Right.
so maybe finding some contractors who are willing to accept payment at closing.
Okay.
And there's probably a few additional documents you would need to get your sellers to sign. And if they're just looking to, sell a property, they want this price up here, there's also got to be a reality check conversation. That's not the
Yeah.
easiest. I like having those conversations after I've already been hired, though, to be honest with you. I'll mention, hey, carpet's an issue here, but we'll see what the market says. And if the market's rejecting us, we're going to have to do something to either the price or the condition of the property to get this property moved. And we re-reference their motivation for selling again.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Good.
That's a great thought, Nate. I also like the over under game from Price is Right. Like if they think that it's a $400,000 house, but based on the condition, it's, let's say 370 or 350 or whatever. Show them the comps, show them pictures of the house that sold at 400. And do you think ours is do you think ours should be priced over or under this one? And then show them one that maybe sold at 300. Is ours over or under? And like help them to self-discover that, oh yeah, we don't look as sharp as the other 4 houses that sold at 400. And then I like to let them know too that let's say that if everything was done and it was ready to go, it's a $400,000 house, but it needs $20,000 worth of new carpet, new paint, the countertop has the laminate's burned or whatever, right? Like it needs 20 grand worth of work. I can't expect it to be a hot commodity if I just reduce the price 20 grand and list it for 380. Because if it needs 20 grand worth of work, there's this like huge hassle factor in there. And then oftentimes when the buyers are purchasing that house at 380, well, they don't have $20,000 cash to do all that stuff with after they move in. So we either have to price it to where we can build in some of that cost or make it really appealing. So if it's a $400,000 house all said and done, it needs 20 grand worth of work done. I probably got to price it at like 360, maybe 370, right? Like they're not going to be able to just go, well, it needs 20, so let's reduce 20. It's more than that. It's the factor that Nate talked about. Like when you get the new carpet in, it looks fresh, it smells fresh. You miss all that when they don't do that, and so you take an even more of an exaggerated hit price wise by not doing it up front.
Tim, great point right there. Because to Nate's point as well, like you took your pool of buyers from here with having the carpet and the paint done. Now you've shrunk it because now only this amount of buyers will be looking for a house that they are willing to move in and handle those headaches. And they're going to want a deal. They're going to want to like, hey, for my time, and I've got to get this organized and I've got to pull this out of my pocket and do it. I expect to get a better deal, and it's never a 1-to-1. I like to think it's probably 1.5 to 2 to 1.
Yeah, what you're talking about there is there's plenty of buyers out there willing to create sweat equity. They're not looking to just create sweat. So
there you go. Yeah, exactly.
You got there's a cost associated, and people are willing to take that on. It's just they're gonna want a little equity on the backside, not just the work. So
Okay.
Hey, I have a question. I have a property that is Lee Summit School District, Kansas City address, and they want their property listed as high as we can go. Well, the highest that's sold in that area is 525. So they don't understand on dollars per square foot. Like, why can't we have like like $285 per square foot at the 4,000 square foot home? How do you explain that?
So is their house larger or smaller than the rest of their neighborhood?
They are one of the bigger ones, and they put about 150,000 in there. But 525 is one darn equal to it that also put 164,000 on it. Scheduled to close June 1st. They did meet their appraisal, sorry. So that conversation, I've never had anyone say, well, why can't I have the highest square footage? I was like, well, you'd be selling your house at like 725,000 or whatever the number was. I was like, it's just.
Anytime you're in an area where if you're the biggest guy on the block, everybody else is pulling you down. If you're the smallest guy on the block, everybody else is pulling you up. And so the market will only bear what it'll bear. I mean, is sitting on the market for 60, 90 days trying to chase it down, dropping hundreds of thousands of dollars. Does that sound enjoyable to you? It sounds painful to me. So
Yeah.
Sometimes
They're
I'll
like,
show
well,
'em the
we're in no big hurry, we'll just sit on it and list it for what we think it's worth. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, you're gonna drive the price down more than you're ever gonna drive the price up, so.
Yeah,
So
I
doesn't,
think people. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joanna.
well, doesn't Lonnie say something about don't do the square foot, like per square foot? Like that counts, but it doesn't really count? Or am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was the square foot. What it's really tough because people don't understand the larger the home is, the less the cost per square foot actually goes down, the more square footage you have. Because like if there's I don't know what the square footage you're talking about is, Rusty, but if it's it's a 4,000 square foot house.
Mhm.
Okay. If there's a 4,000, if theirs is 4 and the next door neighbor's house is 3,000, both houses have 3 bathrooms. Both houses have a kitchen. Both houses have an HVAC system. Both houses have a hot water tank. And so those are like, both houses have a roof. Both houses have windows. What's the difference between the 3,000 square foot house and the 4,000 square foot house? Lineal footage of sheetrock, right? It's usually just, right, there's an extra room that is a bunch of empty space. There's more carpet, there's more paint, but not extra big ticket items unless it's a house that has a complete second kitchen, right? Like your cost per square foot goes way down when you're just talking about floor covering, sheetrock, and paint, which is usually the difference between a 3,000 square foot house and a 4,000. So your cost per square foot actually starts going down because you're not adding big ticket items. You're just adding the small ticket items.
That's helpful.
I'll show them the really small houses as well in there. So everything gets pulled back to the mean of the neighborhood. So if the average is 2,500 square foot, you have a 1,200 square foot ranch. I mean, that's going to be a 350 square foot. I mean, it's going to be crazy high. Versus if you have 5,000 and the average is 2,500, it's going to be way lower. So sometimes I'll show them the really small houses getting pulled up versus the larger ones getting pulled down, and just say kind of the diminishing returns on that.
hey Rusty, what's up? You mentioned that hey, we'll just list it and if it sells, it sells. But typically there's a little more motivation than just trying to get top dollar for something. Do you know potentially what their motivation would be?
She's moving to where he is at, and the house is paid for. So they're like, well, all we have is utilities to pay. We're not worried about it.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I'm assuming you probably got like a $7,000 or $8,000 tax bill tied to it as well, and you got probably $2 or $3 grand worth of insurance. So you got $1,000 to $2,000 a month of carry cost on that property. So at some point they're gonna want to further their relationship, I'd expect, versus you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
And Nate,
Oh, yeah.
what are they going to do with the money when they sell that property? They're not going to just stick it in a savings account, right? It's going to go into another investment, something else. The money's going to go somewhere.
you're talking about the opportunity cost of having money tied up, and that's a great point, Ryan.
What are you losing there? So you add your 2,000 with your opportunity cost, which might be on if let's say it's a $500,000 house. I mean, you could be losing another $1,000, maybe $2,000. It could cost you $4,000 a month now to stay here. So how long do you want to do? You create,
and you're not living with the person you want to live with. So.
Right.
So the pain point, put your finger on the pain point of not selling and find the motivation. And when you do that, you'll get them to understand a little bit higher level, and they'll pull back and get perspective if they understand how money works.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. It's tough though. It's tough because if we were able to just price everything per square foot, guys, we wouldn't be necessary, would we?
Right.
Just be
that's right. And Nate hit on it at the very beginning too, being, if you're the biggest, baddest boy in the neighborhood, then everybody else is dragging you down. Like the other factor too is unless you find a cash buyer that wants to pay over an appraised value, your ceiling is going to be the neighborhood that you're in. So price per square foot, if that one comes out, I think you mentioned like $700,000. Well, unless you got a cash buyer willing to pay $700 for a $600,000 house, they're not going to be able to sell it anyway. Right?
Yeah.
Like if I build $1 million house in the middle of South Haven Trailer Park, it's no longer worth $1 million as soon as it's done, even though that's what it cost me, because it's just not, it just isn't. The comps are dragging me down. So part of theirs is like, hey, I recognize you have a wonderful home. I love the size of the house. I love the upgrades you did. And the neighbors are killing us a little bit. They're going to cost us some dollars. And maybe that's a lesson to be learned for the future for them. You know, I may not be that blunt about it, but the neighbors love you guys. You're pulling the neighborhood up a little bit with some of the upgrades you've done. It's going to cost us a little bit in our resale price. And here's, you know, more likely where it's actually going to sell at. I'm happy to list it for 4 weeks and advertise it at your price. But after that, I think what you're going to see is the numbers are here, and then go from there. Nate mentioned it earlier too. You're wise, Nate. I like you. Nate said, like, I like to get hired. Like, I want to get hired first, and then we're going to have that conversation. And so get the job, and then just let them know this is, I'm willing to do that. However, this is, you know, most likely where you could expect to sell at. And somebody, maybe it was Ryan, probably, he likes to get to the pain point, or what's the motivation? Why would they just sit on it? That is a good question why would you want to just sit on it to hope that you get some extra money? That's not really a great strategy.
One of the things you can do if you want to appeal to their ego is you can just say, here's the deal. I don't think we can get you the 700 grand, but I think we could set a record. You guys want to try and set a record in the neighborhood, and we'll be the top dog, and all your neighbors will be super thankful, because that one that just closed and got it to appraise is going to give you a benchmark that you can use as a leapfrog, and kind of appeal to their ego by attempting to set a record in the neighborhood. I think that could be something good.
Okay, good points. Thank you, guys.
Point there, Nate, appealing to that ego, because it did sound a little bit of ego, because like, hey, we've got this great property and we're the biggest one out there, and it's like, now here's your opportunity. So I love getting hired, and then to Tim's point, figuring out, making sure we can get on the same page at some point with pricing strategy. If we want to be here at first at your price, that's great. Are we willing to look at this price so that we can ensure we get you sold and it doesn't cost you ultimately $4,000 a month to keep this house? Again, I will repeat that fact back to them again, because I want them to hear that number. I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm just trying to make sure that they clearly understand what the cost of not moving is, because they told me they wanted to move. So I'm not being mean. I'm laying it out there in a business conversation, like, this is what it's costing you. So again, make sure you can do that. Again, that's value. That's value, and that builds trust. Great question. Was that it? Was that the mic drop right there?
Got everyone's brains perplexed.
No kidding. It's been a fantastic conversation to be had, though. I mean, winning business at the highest level, guys, there's nothing, there's other investments you can make in this business that will probably net you more money per hour, but getting in on a listing appointment, we talk about that so much. And if you have your stuff together and you have your numbers together, you're prepared and you're confident and you know your scripts, you guys are going to win. You're going to win almost every time. No one wins every time, Joanna. Nobody wins every time. Does anybody want to win every time? Absolutely, I want to win every time. I think you guys are competitive. We all want to win the listing appointment. But at what price would we take a listing that we can't sell, or we'll spend marketing dollars that will never generate income for the business? So we have to take a look at that and make sure that that is going to be on track at some point, and making sure, like Marcia, I know Marcia didn't take a listing for 6 months on a $5.5 million listing. I can imagine she took that listing for at least a year, and she might even signed it for a 2-year contract. I didn't ask her, but I know she's not going to take a 6-month listing on something like that, because she's going to pour a lot of energy and effort into that thing. She deserves the time to stay hired on that and work on that project.
That's funny you say that, because the sellers did want me to list with a 6-month contract on that. But after my presentation, and when we got down to the nuts and bolts of it, I said, it takes time, and then I have invested a lot of my own time and money, and will continue to do that to get this marketed, or to get this sold. And I finally did get them to do a 12-month, but yeah, that was their plan.
Right.
Is to just do 6 months at a time. And it took a little bit talking, but you need time, especially on a property like that. I don't want to take 12 months. I'd like to have it done in, I don't know, any time now would be helpful. But yeah, they did try to do that, and it didn't make sense for all that I have invested in the marketing and the time. So
especially with land, there's seasons. I mean, we live in the Midwest. There are seasons, and there are seasons of sales in any kind of business. And with land, there's not a lot of activity in December and January and February out there on the dirt. It's the days are short and gray and cold, and no one wants to get out there. And unless you're just priced super aggressive, you're not going to see that. So you need, and explaining that to a seller like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So this is what we need to do. This is where we're going to see our highest amount of activity. However, we would like the opportunity. I wish I could list it for just 6 months. However, my policy is we list for 12 months at a minimum on our land listings so that we can have the appropriate amount of time to be able to attract a buyer for you and get the land sold. That is what you want, right? You sign here. That's it. All right, enough of that. All right, guys, 5 minutes to go. What else we got? Anything good?
I had one come up. I didn't get the listing here. They're listing with somebody I've known since I was 30. It's okay. I'm fine not getting this one. But they have like a California split in Eagle Glen that they're wanting to list, and they put like 50,000 in the kitchen. They're one of those people that have to have the best of everything, and they will tell you how much they spend on it. $3,000 on the kitchen faucet kind of deal. Like, well, we should be able to get about $600,000 on it. I'm like, it's a California split in Eagle Glen. I think Lonnie's old house has a record out there like 565. So again, I didn't even interview for that one because they've had their realtor for 30 years. I was just kind of overhearing the conversation. Thankful I didn't get that one because they're expecting $600,000 out of a California split there in Eagle Glen. So, but and I've talked to several people that are like, well, we put $50,000 into this house, and the neighborhood's mean average is about 250 on everything. So it's kind of hard. Those are hard conversations to have.
I wish you would have called me before you dropped 50 grand and made yourself upside down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. So how do you say? Is that how you say it?
That's exactly how I say it. Yeah.
Here's my card. Call me when it's not selling and you're frustrated.
What you say to that is, well, you guys got the value of enjoying whatever that upgrade was that you made, but that's not bringing value to the market.
Yeah, the utility value or whatever it is.
That's some nice hot water coming out of that faucet. I know it's got to be good.
I mean,
I've got 100. I'll replace it with $100 one. We'll move it to your new house.
That topic probably comes up more than anything on solar panels. People get sold a bill of goods on the solar panels, and I don't see the dollar for dollar return on investment that they're sold on the sell side. Do you guys?
No.
15% maybe.
Maybe.
If that, yeah.
Like 15 cents.
Paid off.
When they bought it, they were thinking they were getting $2 for every buck. It's tough.
They got a big tax return or tax credit.
I think they're ugly.
Aesthetically, yes, you are correct. Yeah, they are ugly. And the fact that you try to get, stack on $50,000 or $60,000 on your price point, no one's going to want to pay for that. You made that choice. You did that for, like Nate said, you did that for your own enjoyment of your property. You were selling the property now. However, banks don't find the value in those, and the market doesn't either. Not for value, at least. So that's tough when someone's dropped 50 grand on solar panels, but they do it.
I was working on one the other day on, speaking of solar panels, and they were saying on an FHA buyer, you cannot assume the solar panel loan as well at the same time. So they have to be paid off. I know a lot of people are wanting people to assume that solar panel loan.
And Jake, I read into that on the solar panel loan. And if you do transfer it, let's say you go with a conventional buyer, look at the fine print in the agreement that they signed. If that buyer that buys that house defaults on that payment, they legally have a right to come back to you as the first purchaser of those panels and ask for payment. And I was actually reading through that with a client we had last year. And I said, guys, you built up some great equity, but if you want to take the liability and the risk for something to come back to you in the future on this, you certainly can. My recommendation is you just pay this thing off and move forward, and because that's not going to follow you at that point. But yeah, check on that fine print. But I don't know. I don't know if you could get a lawyer on that to beat something like that. But looking at a contract that they signed, that their lawyers wrote up, that you agreed to, just check on that thing, those types of things for your clients as well. All right. That's the extra mile, guys. I appreciate your time today. Thanks for jumping on the call. I got 11 o'clock. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
See you guys.
Bye,
See ya.
guys.